Okay, let's dive into the weather situation for Thursday, April 24th, 2025. We've got to look at what's happening right now and definitely some hints of potentially bigger things coming down the line.
Right. The goal here is just to sort of unpack the forecast, pull out what you need to know.
Exactly. So where do we start today?
Well, right now we've got an active system, an MCS, Mesoscale Convective System, impacting Oklahoma and parts of Texas.
Okay, an MCS, like a big blob of thunderstorms working together.
Pretty much, yeah. Think of it as a large cluster acting like one big system. As it tracks southeast, the main thing we're watching for is some isolated damaging wind gusts.
Got it. So folks in its path need a heads up for strong winds.
Definitely stay aware, yeah.
Okay, so that's the immediate picture. But the forecast is also pointing to, well, new storms firing up further west.
That's right. And this is where it gets pretty interesting. The Storm Prediction Center has put out a slight risk for severe storms.
Slight risk.
Yeah.
Where specifically?
Across the southern and central high plains, we're talking areas around, say, Leach, Amarillo, and Midland in Texas.
Okay, high plains. And what are the primary threats looking like there?
The big concerns are large hail, potentially up to baseball size.
Wow, baseball size.
Yeah, and damaging winds as well. That slight risk means conditions are, becoming favorable for these storms to pop up.
Baseball size.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really don't want to be caught out in that. So this risk isn't just contained to the high plains, though. It sounds like it stretches out a bit.
Correct. There's a broader marginal risk area. It extends from Iowa down through Texas, even nudging into Louisiana.
And what's driving that wider sort of lower end risk?
It's really tied into the repeated rounds of storms we've already seen. All that activity has prompted a day one excessive rainfall outlook.
Oh, okay. So rain is a big part of this story, too. Where's that outlook focused?
It covers a pretty big swath of the central U.S., Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, and importantly, the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
And how much more rain are we talking?
We could see another, say, 1 to 3 inches, generally. But the thing is, in some isolated spots, you could get totals exceeding 4 inches.
Okay, 1 to 3, maybe over 4 inches locally. What does that mean for folks on the ground?
Well, it significantly bumps up the risk of flooding, especially where the ground is already saturated from recent rains.
Right, it doesn't take much then.
Exactly. Even moderate rain can cause localized flooding pretty quickly in those vulnerable flood-prone spots. So the key advice is really just stay alert, keep an eye out for flood warnings.
Makes total sense. Now, looking beyond today, it sounds like the forecast is hinting at maybe more significant changes early next week.
Yes, that's definitely what we're tracking. The main player is a deepening upper-level trough out over the western U.S.
Okay, an upper-level trough. Remind us what that signifies.
Think of it as a big dip, a big wave in the jet stream high up. These often bring unsettled weather, and this one looks pretty potent.
So it's digging in out west. And then what?
Then it's forecast to move eastward, starting Sunday and really influencing things into Monday. That eastward movement forces air to rise.
And rising areas, that's the key ingredient for storms, right?
Crucial ingredient, yeah.
Yeah.
Strong upward motion. And then closer to the ground, we expect changes too.
Okay, what's happening down low? You mentioned something about a low-pressure system.
Exactly. As that upper system shifts east, a low-pressure area will develop at the surface. And it acts like a vacuum, basically.
A vacuum for?
For pulling warm, really moist air north from the Gulf of Mexico, we're talking specifically into places like Nebraska and Iowa, dew points could climb well into the upper 60s, maybe low 70s.
Upper 60s, low 70s dew points.
Yeah.
Why is that such a red flag for meteorologists?
Because those numbers tell us the air mass is incredibly moist and unstable. It's like having, high-octane fuel ready to go for thunderstorms.
Okay, super rich storm fuel.
Right, and you combine that fuel with the strong lift from that approaching trough, well, that's a recipe for potentially significant severe weather.
Got it. So let's jump ahead then. Monday, April 28th. Sounds like the Storm Prediction Center is already highlighting a specific zone.
They are. They've issued an enhanced risk for severe weather for Monday.
Enhanced risk. Where's that focused?
It covers parts of Iowa, southern Minnesota, and northern Missouri. Think cities like Des Moines, Omaha, Cedar Rapids, maybe even as far north as Rochester, Minnesota, potentially.
An enhanced risk. That sounds, well, pretty serious. What level of confidence does that imply?
It signals pretty high confidence that significant severe weather like Damaging winds, large hail, maybe tornadoes will occur within that area.
Okay, high confidence. And
Yeah.
what are the atmospheric ingredients telling us? You mentioned KP values.
Yeah, the forecast models are showing KP values potentially exceeding 3,000 joules per kilogram.
KPE. Again, that's the storm fuel measure.
Correct. Convective available potential energy. It's how much energy is available for storms to tap into. And values over 3,000.
It's a lot. Like a full tank of gas.
Pretty much, yeah. A full tank combined with a powerful engine that upper trough really ramps up the potential for severe storms.
Wow. Okay. But the risk isn't just confined to that enhanced area, is it? There's a broader region, too.
That's right. There's a wider 15% risk area surrounding it. That includes places like Kansas City, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, even down to Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Okay. But I heard there might be a complication, especially further south.
Yeah, there's a bit of a tricky forecast situation, particularly for places like Oklahoma City and southern Kansas.
What's the issue there?
Well, they're expected to have plenty of instability, plenty of that fuel we talked about, but there's also the potential for a layer of warm air aloft. We often call it a cap.
A cap, like putting a lid on a boiling pot.
Exactly like that. It can suppress storm development, even if all the other ingredients are there. So there's some uncertainty whether storms will actually be able to break through that cap and initiate down there.
So, bit of a maybe for the southern extent,
Hmm.
but further north in that enhanced risk zone.
The thinking there is that storms are much more likely to overcome any cap that might be present. The lift should be stronger.
Which means a higher likelihood of severe storms actually developing.
Yes, a higher likelihood overall. And importantly, that includes an increased potential for tornadoes in that enhanced risk area.
Tornadoes. Okay, definitely something to watch closely. Now, this system, it doesn't just pack up and leave after Monday, right?
No, unfortunately not. It looks like the same system keeps moving east, bringing the severe weather threat along with it into Tuesday, April 29th.
Okay, so Tuesday's threat. Where's the focus then?
The SPC has another 15% risk area outlined. It stretches from northeast Texas up through the mid-Mississippi Valley and into the Ohio Valley.
Because that includes quite a few major metro areas.
It does. We're talking Chicago, Detroit, Indianapolis, Columbus, Cleveland, St. Louis, and the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex again.
Okay, so maybe not quite the same intensity level suggested by Monday's enhanced risk, but still a significant threat over a large area.
Right. The overall setup might be, let's say, slightly less favorable for widespread intense severe weather compared to Monday. But damaging winds and large hail are still the main concerns.
And tornadoes. Still a possibility.
Isolated tornadoes are still possible within that 15% risk area on Tuesday, yes. Can't rule them out.
And it's not just the severe thunderstorms, is it? There's that heavy rain component, too.
Absolutely. That fire hose of moisture from the Gulf doesn't just fuel the severe storms. It also means multiple rounds of heavy rain and general thunderstorms.
Which brings us back to flooding.
Right back to it. The risk of flooding is going to be elevated, especially across Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri through the coming week. Areas that are already wet are particularly vulnerable.
So multi-day threat covering both severe weather and flooding across a big chunk of the country. What about the weekend leading into this, Friday, Saturday? Anything brewing then?
Well, there are some marginal severe weather risks lingering over parts of Texas and Oklahoma for Friday and Saturday.
Marginal.
Yeah.
So lower end.
Yeah, lower end. And we'll see general thunderstorm chances extending eastward towards the East Coast. It's, fairly typical springtime stuff. Daytime heating, humidity sparking off some storms. Not the organized high-end threat we're looking at for early next week.
Okay, good to know. Let's switch gears slightly. Temperatures. What's the outlook there?
Near term, so the next few days, the east and the south central U.S. are generally going to stay warmer than average for late April.
Okay, warmer east and south central. What about longer term, into May?
It looks like a bit of a pattern shift might be coming in early May. The warmth might shift more towards the northwest, and potentially some cooler than average air could start filtering in from Mexico into the southern U.S.
Interesting. Bit of a flip and precipitation patterns beyond these immediate storm systems.
We're seeing signals for perhaps decreased rainfall in the northern plains and upper Midwest, which is, opposite to the wet conditions further south.
Okay. And the East Coast.
The East Coast might actually see an increase in rainfall. That could be good news for easing some drought conditions that have been lingering there.
Helpful rain potentially for the East and out west.
Continued rainfall chances look likely for parts of Arizona and West Texas.
Okay. So a really dynamic picture across the whole country. Severe potential, flooding, temperature swings, shifting rain patterns.
Hmm.
It really highlights how interconnected everything is.
It absolutely does. And, with that enhanced risk looming for early next week, the main message really is to stay informed and be prepared.
Right. Keep checking those local forecasts.
Definitely. Pay attention to warnings for your specific area. This situation, especially for Monday and Tuesday, is going to be watched very closely, and the forecast will be updated.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And maybe, as you're looking at your local forecast, just remember how these big patterns connect. That dip in the jet stream way out west, that moisture flowing up from the Gulf, it's all linked. The system driving hail in Texas today could be the same one posing a tornado risk in Iowa next week. It's one large, interconnected atmospheric system.
Absolutely fascinating. And a crucial reminder. Stay safe out there, everyone. And yeah, maybe take a moment to think about those larger connections, how that trough out west influences the wind in your backyard, or how moisture from the Gulf thousands of miles away fuels the rain overhead. It's a complex dance, but hopefully